Dinosaur Man.
Hello and welcome to the Dinosaur Man podcast. I'm Andy Hughes. I'm here with Alex Hudson.
Greetings, dear everyone.
Well, I'm also here with Paul Hudson.
Hello.
Tradition dictates.
Why is Paul here, guys?
Well,
We left the door open.
Oh, should we let them answer?
we didn't let him leave.
We've kept him for a year.
It's
Have
because...
you been on a podcast since last year's?
Yeah, I think so.
I think you're one. Yeah, Magic Cinema.
Of course. The Magic Cinema. The franchise that we will be bringing back from the semi-dead in 2021.
But Paul's here because tradition dictates that he must come here once a year so we can discuss the films of the year. And what a year it's been, guys.
Wow.
Correct.
2020. The year that everyone will forget because
has been
nothing
a year.
eventful happened. I don't remember a single thing. Of course I remember a thing. We had the novel coronavirus. The non-fiction coronavirus. That's a good literature joke.
Yeah.
Come on, everyone.
Technically,
This is the level of jokes that we're getting up to here.
365 days have passed, and therefore,
366.
that is a year.
Yeah, leap year this year.
Leap year.
That was a year, and therefore we are here again in the Dinosaur Man HQ
Yes.
to talk about the films of the year.
Yes. We're in our funky bunker. So greetings to all of our listeners, and Happy New Year to you all. We hope that this year, 2021, when we are recording this, is prosperous and lovely.
Yes.
Is that good enough? Is that all
Sure.
we need to do?
Should we just kind of get into it?
I think we should, yeah. We've got limited bandwidth this month. We need to get this out. Okay.
So, guys,
if you're new here,
yes, I am.
every episode is my first episode. So if you're new here, this is a yearly tradition. We review the year in film. We discuss a number of categories. And those categories are best moment in film, most disappointing film, biggest surprise, the Nerve Award for stupidest film of the year,
Yep.
sponsored. I think it's still technically the Entourage Award
It
for
will always-
worst film of the
It
year,
will always be the Entourage Award for the worst film of the year.
and best film.
Johnny Drama himself.
So Andy, myself, and Paul will take turns to discuss our choices for each of those categories, and we will come up with quote-unquote winners for each of those categories. Obviously, no one wants to win Entourage, but, you know, Entourage did it and something else has to. Well, Entourage didn't, but then retroactively won it.
We saw Entourage after we'd given our
Pixels?
award. I think
I
so.
think it was Pixels
And then we
was
realised
the
that
worst.
actually Entourage is just the forever worst film of the year.
And I've not even seen Pixels, and I know that it's better than Entourage. So,
It is, because there's a bit where Kevin James plays the president.
And Josh Gad fucks a cubit.
and I think Adam Sandler gets a blowjob from Miss Pac-Man. Is that right?
These were all in the behind-the-scenes extras. They weren't in the actual...
No, Josh
film.
Gad did fuck a cubit, guys. In Pixels, Josh
And I
Gad
thought the
legitimately...
blowjob was on the poster. I gotta go back and look at that. It was a Japanese poster. Japan's got some problems with things. We know that. Okay, so let's get into it. So, first category, as always, / from maybe 2 years ago when we started doing it in this format, best moment in film. Andy, do you want to kick us off?
I'll go first. So when it comes to best moment, I had a couple of it. I was like, I'm really close to. And I decided, I actually have a legitimate best moment, but I'm not going to pick.
What?
Because
That's
it's
the whole point of this
but
category.
The problem is it's from my best film.
Okay.
And I want to kind of separate things out a little
Yeah.
bit. So I'm actually going to pick up best moment from my second favourite film of the year,
Oh, okay.
which is from Parasite.
Yes.
And is what I will dub the hot sauce moment. Which is
Oh, yes.
the way this family infiltrate the kind of how this kind of lower class family infiltrate this upper class by kind of getting rid of the obstacles in their way by using hot sauce to make it look like. Can we spoil stuff here?
Yeah, I think. I mean, Parasite came out in January.
Yeah. So basically, to get rid of the housemaid who was pretty much the only obstacle they had in the way, they basically make it look like she's got tuberculosis or something by making it look like when she's coughing,
She's coughing up blood.
coughing up blood. And the entire construction of that scene, including the way it's shot, is just wonderful. Like the way the camera kind of pulls out as people are walking up the stairs, and it just camera movement conveys like horror and emotion of its own. I think in a film that is so well put together, that scene I absolutely adore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's no scene this year in any film that has made me go, wow, as much as that.
Mm-hmm.
Of just from a pure kind of how not a moment is wasted.
Yes.
Like everything is constructed so well that I was just like, this is good. This is good cinema. And I'll be honest, guys, there's not a lot of good cinema this year. But this was.
Is there not? I think
I
there's
don't
loads.
think so. No.
I've got loads of good cinema.
Of course,
man.
it's a good cinema.
Yeah, I got loads. I got loads of bad cinema, but I got lots of good stuff as well.
But there wasn't many films that I feel made me just go like, wow.
Sure.
And Parasite was one of those for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll probably talk about the film later on anyway.
Well, what we'll do is we'll go around, get the moments, and then we can discuss the moments briefly between us. So, Paul, you're up next. Best moment.
My best moment of 2020 UK releases came in 2019 when I watched a preview screening of A Beautiful Day in the Neighbourhood. Now, for those that don't know, A Beautiful Day in the Neighbourhood is a film that tells the story of Mr. Rogers, a very famous American kids' TV host who was effectively, I don't know, America's uncle, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to describe him. And this film is all about a journalist doing a biography sort of article on him, and that this journalist is very cynical. And there's this great moment where they go to a Chinese restaurant together. Now, in this Chinese restaurant, the journalist mentions that Mr. Rogers loves people like him, broken people. Mr. Rogers has a little bit of a speech here, but then my moment of the year is literally 1 minute long. It's 60 seconds.
It's actually longer than that. It goes on longer than it's supposed to. He says, just take 1 minute to. Well, you describe what happens.
Yeah,
but it's like 1 minute 45, I think.
Oh,
in
is
total.
it? Oh, okay, yeah. So so he says, will you do something with me? Will you be silent for a minute with me? And the journalist says, yeah. And then everyone else in the restaurant quietens. Everyone who was eating, talking, chatting away, everything falls silent. And all you've got the camera flicking around between Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers, Matthew Rhys as Lloyd, forgotten his surname, but the journalist.
Vogel.
Yes, Lloyd Vogel. And then it skips on to the other patrons of the restaurant. It is emotional. And I don't exactly understand how it is as effective as it is. And that's why it's my best moment of the year, because when I saw it in the cinema, I cried during that minute, and it's such a powerful thing to go in a medium that is so reliant on sound, arguably even more so than picture for a lot of films. It's something that when you've got that time in the absence of it all, and you are just left to think. You've already had the themes of the film to talk, the first half of the film sort of go into you. So by this point, there's enough emotional impact within that story that moment of that minute or minute 45 of silence just becomes something where it is reflection, and whatever you as a audience member have taken from that film or taken into that film with you, that's what you feel, and that's where you reflect on. And that's something I think that is truly exceptional, because it's a real piece of art that has different effects on different people in that minute.
It's because there's not much silence in cinema.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the time, there's always at least some undercurrent sound. It's why, say Dunkirk, for example, when the music stops, you notice it.
Yeah.
Like, A Quiet Place utilises the absence of sound so well. So I think moments like that, where there is literally like a moment where it's allowed to just breathe and there's nothing.
Like I think you can hear one of the extras clearing their throat and stuff like this. Just you get those little tiny sounds that are in natural life, but that's it. And even that is kept to a minimum because everyone stops eating and all of that stuff. So no, that's exactly it. So and it is as I say, I always believe that the great art is subjective. And for a moment like that to have because I've not really spoken to many other people about what they might have thought about during that time. I've not told people what I thought about during that time. But I rewatched the scene recently just to make sure, and I was like, yep, that's still it.
Yeah.
That's still it.
So I could have had something from A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I've got a different moment that I was going to pick, but I moved on from that because I am nothing if not just all over the place. I'm a scatter. There's loads of different things that I had lined up, and then I kept going back to this one thing over and over and over again.
We'll hit a couple of honourable mentions after
Yeah.
this.
So I'm not going to win this category. I'm going to tell you this now. Because you ain't seen this film. You have. Yeah. So, St. Maud. And the reason I'm not going to win is because I'm still trying to talk around the spoiler aspect of it. The final frame of St. Maud is a image that has been burned into my consciousness since I saw it in October. And hasn't really left it. And in terms of an indelible image from cinema in the year of 2020, that's the thing that I come back to again and again and again. And there's been some wonderful moments in a lot of films, and, that silent scene in Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is phenomenal. But this is the thing where, if you told me, right, close your eyes and think of a moment from cinema this year, this is it, and it's horrifying. I don't know what else I can say, because it's either the thing that you think it is, or it's the thing that Maud thinks it is. And that's as much as I can say.
As someone who has seen the film, it's a very difficult moment to talk about any further without giving away.
Basically, I'm still hoping that at some point you will watch this film, Andy. And I'm still hoping that if our audience, because it's not a widely seen film, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood came out in January. Parasite came out in January. This came out in October on about 25 screens and hasn't yet had a home release. It's getting one in January. But there is something about it where it is just, because it's the final frame of the movie, I sat there in silence for about a minute and a half afterwards as the credits rolled, and I just sat there thinking, I don't know what to think. And the film isn't a long film, it's 86 minutes, but it is a film that leaves you with the most powerful moment of that film right at the end in terms of a very visceral image. It's wonderful. I love it so much, and I will not win because it's going to be one of your teams.
Guys, I know you're listening. You went, my bingo card hasn't got the full house yet, but then Hudson comes in at the last with his, here's my moment I can't explain to you because I don't want to spoil anything. It's also
a single frame.
I've done it some years.
Hold on, I hear them shouting bingo.
So yeah, in terms of that, mine is a split second. So obviously yours is the longest at being the full scene of the... I refer to it as the peach fuzz scene rather than But then that's also confused with Creep, Mark Duplass film.
Peach Fuzz is...
not Mark Duplass film, but he's in it. Yours is obviously the middle ground, and then mine is the sort of 3 seconds. Not even.
Oh, it's not 3 seconds.
It's half second.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Half a second.
Anyway, let's talk about it. So, peach fuzz scene / hot sauce scene.
Yes.
I love this. And it is that thing of, as a mechanic within the film, of everything coming together, all of these threads get tied together and all of this plotting comes together in this sort of really satisfying and complete way. You're right, it's everything in it works. There is a range of different emotions going on. You've got the emotions of the homeowners. You've got the emotions of the new family and of the old housekeeper. And there's just everything is on display there. I really, really love that scene as just a single set piece, as it were, within that greater film.
I think for me, it's a part that is kind of symptomatic of the whole.
Yes.
Like... that scene being kind of as well done as it is.
Yeah, that's is the condensed...
the whole film is like that.
That contains the essence of Parasite.
Yeah, and this is possible, because no moments from Parasite came into my head for best moment, and I think, personally, my reason in my head for that is because the whole film is so strong that there was no moment that I could go, that's it from there. Because I think it's one that it's 2 hours of almost perfect cinema. There's very few things that have been come out in the last decade at least that have been better than it, and I'm at least very glad that it's got all the recognition earlier this year in the award season. Obviously, we're talking about it a year after a lot of podcasts will be talking about it, but them's the rules. 2020 UK releases. Exactly. So, but yeah, no. So it is a fantastic scene. And I think if people still haven't seen it, then it's on Prime now. It's on, if you're in the UK, it's on Amazon Prime, and there's a black and white version on Amazon Prime as well,
which is really good. That's the version I watched to catch up with it again. Okay.
So you can,
and I think I'd be interested in seeing that on the big screen because obviously I'd seen the original version on the big screen, and then this came out basically in the midst of that, in between lockdowns, but then everything sort of went down again, so it's just not got the exposure yet. But it's really interesting in terms of seeing it in a different light. I think I would say I prefer the original version, the colorized version, but the black and white version is also worth watching, I think. And particularly if you're revisiting it, it might be worth doing it in that other version.
Well, it's something that, a couple of films have done over the past, I remember it with Mad Max Fury Road, and I remember it with Logan as well.
Yeah.
And having these black and white versions come out afterwards does help give a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Fury Road's the one that I thought was exceptional in black and white.
He filmed it for black and white, didn't he?
And
which is crazy, seeing as the colour in that film.
Yeah.
But yeah, so...
Your moment, Paul, the restaurant scene, I do adore this, and I think if any scene sort of summed up the film experience, I think you said the sort of essence of Parasite is within that scene. I think exactly the same thing happens here in that, I mean, I've talked about this on the podcast. I was crying from the moment the credits started in that film.
It's a very emotional
and I
film.
cried throughout, pretty much. Silent crying, but still crying. And I think a lot of mine was fed into the fact that I'd watched the documentary a couple of years ago and then watched this and just went, oh, this is everything I wanted it to be and more. And I think Marielle Heller, as a director, just fundamentally understood what that film was.
Yeah.
And it is a film that reflects the personality of the man, and it's a thoughtful and kind-hearted and uncynical film. And I think in this year more than any other,
that's what we need.
That's been huge. And we talked about this recently on the podcast with Happiest Season, in that that's also a film that feels very uncynical in the way it's put together. And that's kind of what you need, and to have those two as sort of bookends to the year for me. Wonderful. Really, really good.
You're the only person who had a good 2020.
Fucking 2020 was maybe the best year of everyone's life, right?
But no, you are exactly right there. I mean, it is what I would possibly liken it to is the positive, the wholesome story of Soul coming out at the very end of this year, and Beautiful Day being at the very start of this year. But yeah, no, I think, there's a lot of things that go into that moment. I think that moment itself is one of the reasons that I'm very, very, very annoyed that Marie Heller got snubbed for Best Director nominations. I appreciate that Bong Joon-Ho was, won it, and deservedly so, but that is a film that is got excellent direction in it, excellent performances, and that scene, you're right, just symbolize,
I think before long we'll see her up there, because Marielle Heller is someone who's got has got a really good track record already, just from the couple of films that we've seen in recent years, that and Can You Ever Forgive Me? But also, there's so much time left in her career in terms of, I'm really excited to see what she does next.
In fact, there you go. She already did one of the films that I picked for my film of the year.
Yeah,
a couple of years ago. So, but yeah, no, and it is one that it's something that I have to say. I think I might end up siding with Andy on the best moment purely because I do think...
I'm about to side with Paul, I'll be honest.
Oh, okay.
I was going to side with
Yeah,
Paul.
Oh, in
I've
that
completely
case,
forgotten.
fair
about,
enough.
Like,
I'm taking it then. I'm taking it.
My neighbour I saw, very start of this year.
Yeah.
I saw After You Two. And it's a film that, like, I completely forgot about, but it's a film that made me silently sob. Like, while my parents... Like, I was watching it and my parents were in the room, and I was just watching it on, like, a tablet, and I was just there, like, silently sobbing to myself. And, yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Okay, I'm taking it then. I'll win this one.
Yeah.
I think it's still in your top 10 potentially for the
I think
year,
it is,
or it's certainly around
It's
it.
a really
And I think
exceptional
it's-
moment. I don't think I'm going to be able to. Don't think I'm going to be talking about it for best film. So I would, it's nice that I've been able to talk about it a little bit as well because it is so uncynical and so on it. I mean, it's the film that I needed at that time of year. And it's that film that I know that when I go back to it eventually, I'm still going to take those positives away from it.
Okay, so we're going with the restaurant scene from
A Beautiful
Day in the Neighborhood. It's not White, Won't You Be My Neighbor? That's the dog.
Yeah, I think that's what I got.
Honourable mentions. Do you have anything you want to speak about?
I'll just do a couple of lines.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I won't go into details, but I'll just say a couple of them. The one that was so close to me was the opening of Soul from the point when he is falling through the afterlife.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's a beautiful introduction to that film. I think that film was incredible. Anytime Dan Levy is on screen in Happiest Season.
I've got Dan Levy entering the party and Happiest Season because that was my reaction of the year.
Your reaction was the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Also, if we give an award for best line, it's I nailed that and she is fabulous. That's my line.
And the restaurant scene in Invisible Man.
Yes.
Yes.
So that was going to be one of my honourable mentions because that was an exceptional scene.
I didn't expect it.
And I know it's the scene that literally left my jaw dropped in that film.
Any others?
I've got two honourable mentions, which is the corridor fight scene in Tenet. I think it's a masterful bit of set piece blockbuster action. And the other one comes from Happier Season, but just to break the mold, it's not Dan Levy. It's the
Wow.
it's the moment when
The hottest take of all year.
it's a moment when children reveal to their parents a couple of secrets that they've been hiding, and the third sister says, I don't have a secret, but I am an ally. And I don't know why, but that moment got me. And that's the one where, it was just a really, really, again, from a very nice film, that was the moment that summed it up for me.
Okay, so obviously Dan Levy entering the party, very funny, great moment. Also Dan Levy talking about his coming out experience to Kristen Stewart's character.
Also Dan Levy asking where you might buy fish if you wanted some fish. It was very good.
Yes, and then the other moment I had was from... Oh, in fact, I had two other moments. The karaoke scene in Tesla, which is a film that neither of you two have seen, and very few people did see. But it's a moment that is entirely out of place in any other biographical film, except this one, which is deliberately doing things differently, kind of to reflect Tesla. It's just a weird moment that really made me smile. And then the final one I wanted to just mention was the... I've gone blank now and my phone's gone off, that's why. Oh, come on now. What is it? I literally looked at... Yes, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. The final moment of that film, where earlier in the film, Mr. Rogers has talked about when I feel down, because Lloyd's asking him, oh, well, why do you do it? You mustn't actually feel this positive about stuff all the time. Don't you ever feel angry or upset? And he said, well, yeah, sometimes I do, and I'll play all the notes on the piano. And then that then comes in right at the end as his final thing of just having this impact on this other person's life and then just having to let out all of the stuff that he's not able to undo. I think that's a beautiful moment. But yeah, I'm really glad it went to that film.
Yeah, it's honest. I mean, it's a film that stayed with me for a long time, and that moment's the one that... Yeah, there's many other moments in there that I could have picked out.
Yeah.
There's some great stuff with Chris Cooper in that film, but yeah, I'm just glad that we've been able to talk about it, and if you haven't watched it already, it is really, really worth a watch.
Okay, so moving on. Most disappointing film of the year. You going last on this one, Andy?
Right, yeah.
You want to go first?
I want to start, yeah.
Whoa!
Yeah. So, my most disappointing film of the year was a film that had a bit of hype built around it, both from the fact that, from the director's previous efforts, as well as soon as the trailer started coming out, people got insanely excited and started hyping it up massively. And that film is Jojo Rabbit.
Okay.
Jojo Rabbit is the latest from Taika Waititi, director of Hunt for the Wilder People, Thor, Ragnarok, and What We Do in the Shadows, etc., and various other bits and bobs. He's done a couple of episodes of Mandalorian and bits and bobs like that as well. This is he was by far one of my favourite filmmakers a couple of years ago, and I thought Hunt for the Wilder People is one of the best films I've ever seen, and I really, really love that film. Now, he's just, and this is probably going to annoy a lot of people, because I know a lot of people still hold Jojo Rabbit in very high regard.
The Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, dude.
But
he won the Best Adapted Screenplay.
I did not think it hit the mark, and I do think that I can understand why it won Best Adapted Screenplay, because of the topics that it's about and blending humour into that. But I just don't think that after what he's already put out, I don't think it was anywhere near the standard that he can live up to. And I'm just hoping that he's not going to suffer from the same problems that Tarantino suffers from, which is people not telling him no.
I mean, he's doing a Star Wars film, so he's basically bulletproof, because nothing bad can come of that.
But that's it, and it's a shame, because there's a couple of good bits in it, and there's some stuff that I did enjoy in it, but there's also a lot of stuff that was very bad in that film, I thought, or just going, you're really missing the mark here. The biggest plus side of it is that Thomasin McKenzie got a good role in it, and she's fantastic. I'm very excited to see what she does next. But yeah, it was a very disappointing.
So Paul was disappointed on the 1st of January.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your preaching, Paul, but only the choir are here.
Very true. So my most disappointing, again, a movie that was hyped as being the saviour of cinema. What? A director whose previous track record is incredible, apart from
Wonder Woman 1984.
Not seen it. Not seen it, and you know it. So, Tenet. Because of everything. So, the thing is, I can appreciate the good aspects of Tenet, and I would say that the good aspects are the two set pieces that really stick with me, being the highway chase and the corridor scene, the scene in the art vault. Now, I wanted much more from this film, and it fails on basic fundamental levels that I think are inexcusable for a filmmaker of Christopher Nolan's ability. And that's why I've got to choose it as my most disappointing, because I don't think it's the worst film of the year. It's nowhere near the worst film of the year. I've seen a lot of Netflix holiday specials. But what it is it's a complete failure to live up to, the hype that was being built around. And I think maybe, I mean, to be honest, him saying it needs a cinematic release, that was the thing that kept coming back to me. I was thinking, I think he's bought into this, that he is going to save cinema, and that he was sort of reticent about moving it back too far because he wanted to be the big thing that opened. Yeah. Unhinged got there first. Sorry, guys. But what it fails to do is have a narrative plot that works. The actual plot of the film doesn't work as well as the concept works as an idea. It is a film that is driven by the concept being the core thing, and everything else is tertiary, and that is just inexplicable to me, because it can't function as a film. It only functions as here's a concept for you. That's never been his thing. It's been, they work on that level, but also on a fundamental level of, they are functional films, and really well-made films. So, yeah, if you look back to things like The Prestige, if you look back to things like Memento or Interstellar, I mean, present company accepted, Paul, they all work on a fundamental level and then work on this other existential level. This just doesn't, and I'm not even sure if it works on the existential level, but that's clearly the thing that he's latched onto and gone, this is my thing for this film. You haven't made the film to support that thing. That's the problem. So that's my choice for most disappointing. Andy?
So I have to go last for a reason.
Yes.
And it's because I'm going to cheat. Mark your bingo cards, guys, because Andy's coming in to cheat.
Okay.
My most disappointing thing about cinema in
Here we
2020
go.
is cinema in 2020.
Okay.
Because every film that I looked forward to was pushed back or didn't come out or had limited release and you weren't able to see. So every single thing that I wanted to see, you'd get a release date and be like, oh, actually it's going to come out here. But then 6 down the line, you go, oh, hold on.
No Time to Die is never coming out, by the way, guys.
And then
it's the new Gambit.
And then
No
the ones
time
that
to
were
release.
the ones that were delayed massively,
Yes.
then come out and they're the New Mutants, and you're like, oh,
Sure.
great, this is what we've got to play with. And I do think there are some really great films this year. Like, I'm not disparaging the entire year. I think there are some really, really great stuff,
I got like 40 of them.
especially in that first, 3 months of cinema.
They really packed them in early.
But I think a lot of it has been like I've seen a lot of streaming stuff this year, and streaming stuff just there is some good stuff in there, but there is a lot of chaff as well. And
You have to wade
the
through
biggest
the
disappointment is
haystack to get to the shiny needle.
there is
Is that a good thing? A needle?
there is some really great stuff, but I think the biggest disappointment of this year is this year.
Yeah.
And I think I'm thinking for everybody
knew
here.
you'd do this as well. I thought if no one says it, we should probably mention that that's the biggest disappointment. But then I was like, no, Shoes probably will say it. And look at you, you're saying it now.
I'm not wrong.
I'd also like to you just reminded me of something. I do think it's immoral that after mentioning it as his most anticipated, 3 years in a row,
That is true.
The New Mutants did not make his most disappointing.
No, it's because he's going into his best movie.
But it wasn't. It wasn't even on my most anticipated this year.
Oh, okay.
So if it had come out last year and been as whatever it is as it is, then yeah. But it came out this year, and I wasn't looking forward to it anymore because I just presumed it would also go on the Gambit pile along with No Time to Die.
So yeah.
So your thing is 2020 is the biggest disappointment.
Let's be honest. We at the end of 2019, we went, I can't wait for 2020. I'm glad for this year to be over. And how many people went, oh, actually, yeah, my life improved in 2020.
Just think it's going to get worse next year.
I think it's Jeff Bezos, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's fight this one out. Andy, I'm disqualifying you. You cheated.
What?
Everyone's had a shit year. We all know that. That's an easy win. Fine. Unofficially, yes, that's the winner.
I mean,
I'll take an unofficial win if I have to.
and again, this is the one where
I agree with both of you, by the way.
I don't think we can pick anything other than Tenet because as much.
I'm strong.
The reason I didn't, I was disappointed by Tenet.
Yes.
However, I still love a lot of stuff in that film, and there's a lot of stuff that I do, and I don't necessarily think it doesn't work on the narrative thing because I think it works, but it's just that they do it in a simplistic way, which I think is fine, but not what we would expect from Christopher Nolan.
It'd be nice if I could hear any of the stuff that was going on.
That's where the sound mixing is absolutely terrible in that film, and that's where this is the thing, because that's the reason it has to go in. That has to be the most disappointing, because as much as I have forgiven the plot being very simplistic, what I can't forgive is a Christopher Nolan blockbuster where the sound is not good.
But the technical parts don't always
because
work.
The sound, Dunkirk, that is a film that is massively benefited by the sound. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
When the music stops in Dunkirk, the music has stopped, and it makes you feel something because of that. You go back to his Batman trilogy and you go, the sound was so integral in that. And then the fact that for the first, I especially noticed it in the first sort of 20, 25 minutes was when I could barely hear any of the dialogue.
There was times where I had no idea what people were saying.
Yeah. So I have to say that's got to be the definitive most disappointing, even though there is a lot to enjoy about it, I thought, and I did enjoy it a lot more than I know that Alex did.
And I think Jojo Rabbit falls into that same kind of category where I think I think there are moments in that film that are really nice and moments that really work. I just feel it didn't feel consistent with its tone. And it didn't feel like that the whole way through, which I feel is something that Taika Waititi falls into sometimes, where it's like, oh, we need to have a joke here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy to go Tenet, why not?
Yeah.
My runner-up, by the way, was 2020.
Was it actually?
The year's been toilet, guys.
But the thing is, my runner-up is none, because I couldn't think of a film that has that. But maybe Wonder Woman 84, that's terrible. It's a really bad film.
We'll be talking about that on our next News and Reviews episode, coming next week.
I got a lot to say about that.
Good. I hope you have. Paul, any runners-up?
Just...
Is it 2020 in general?
No, there's one I could say, but I'm not ready for the argument that would start.
I know exactly what it is. It's your number 3, I think, Shoes.
Is it Soul?
Soul, yeah.
Loved it. Adored it.
But I'm not going to talk about that one. The Hunt is the other one. I actually had a bit of excitement for The Hunt. I don't know why.
You were the guy.
I know, I was the
You were the guy they
one.
were making
I
it
was
for.
the one.
Picture on the wall.
Just,
This guy.
this man needs this film as soon as possible. And then when Trump said, no, you can't release it, devastated. It was the most anticipated for
It had
last
some
year.
good people in it, and I was looking, I'm always willing to give Blumhouse a chance this year, but this year might have stopped that.
Maybe you shouldn't.
So, but yeah, I was excited for that film, and then it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was, I think it's bottom 3 of my films of the year, in terms of where I'm...
2020 was my only other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
Okay.
official winner, guys, is 2020.
So,
Toilet, yeah.
biggest surprise,
Yes.
most surprising, whatever you want to call it. So this is the award that we sort of give to the film that came out of either low expectations or no expectations in some cases, and really blew us away in terms of how much we enjoyed it. So who wants to go first? Any takers?
I'll go first.
Andy.
So this award basically gets given to multiple films because all of the films win in this category.
Any film that comes out in 2020, because it's
why don't you-
enjoyable that they came out still in
It's
this
all
That's
terrible
right,
year.
Tenet.
No, for me, Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog was a
But it's also
film
best film.
that
weird.
should have been absolute toilet.
Yeah.
Like, its trailers were horrific. The first trailer especially.
Yeah.
The second trailer I went, oh, maybe...
What, you mean
maybe
human
they can improve
teeth?
it. Yeah,
I love that. Bring back human teeth, by the way.
But I watched it, and it was fine.
Yeah.
It was fun at times, and, Jim Carrey played up Jim Carrey.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, that's cool. There was Meow still in there, which is a
Good
great
moment.
joke.
Hang on, was that not your best moment?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't hate it. And I actually got to the end of it and went, I didn't mind spending that time in this film. So, yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Cool. So my biggest surprise is The Vast of Night, which is a movie that's on Amazon Prime that had basically zero expectation for it. I put it on based on the fact that I'd heard some interesting stuff about it, and I thought, it's the year that I've had to embrace streaming movies.
Something's come out this year.
Yeah, I think it was one of those.
It did also come out in that time that there was probably less coming out.
Yeah,
still.
it was that first lockdown period, and it was one of those cases where I think we were approaching the weekend where we would normally record, and I was just going, I don't think I've got anything.
Scrolling through Shudder, just like, come on.
I think it was the pre-Shudder.
Yeah.
It was PS. And I got through to it, and I went, okay, I'll put this on. I'll see what it is. And it's really entertaining. It's it's a science fiction movie that sort of feels like a radio play in a lot of aspects. Made for peanuts, like $700,000, and just really blew me away in terms of how accomplished it was as just a piece of storytelling, really. And a lot of it feels very sort of, it's set in the 1950s, so it feels very sort of retro in that regard, but it gets the theme, that sort of theme right, and it gets all of the aspects of it right. And I was just really impressed by it. It's one of those quiet films that doesn't really do a huge amount of flashiness. It just kind of gets the job done, but it did it to a degree where I was like, oh, this is really accomplished for what it is.
You'd argue there's only one flashy scene in it. Right towards the end. But yeah, no, I'm with you there, and something that I'd like to mention on that one is that I I think it's incredible how accurate the production design was, the stage design and costumes and everything was for a 1950s theme thing on that little budget. That's something that's really impressive.
Good things about it.
There's also, I'd also like to point out, there's a real, and this is what caught my eye. Within the first 5 minutes, there's a really lovely scene where basically the camera follows two characters walking across an entire town, and it's a really excellent bit of low budget filmmaking where you go, wow, yeah. So yeah. I mean, I watched it on your recommendation, so I can't say it's my most surprising of the year because I was told it was good. But
what is your most surprising, Paul?
So my most there's two things I really want to talk about here. But I'm going to have to obviously just do one as an honourable mention. The one that blew me away this year, I watched last week, or this week, or however you want to phrase it. And it was an Apple TV film called Wolfwalkers.
Okay.
So Wolfwalkers is an animated film, and the general premise is that it's an English girl has moved to Ireland with her father. Her mother has passed away at some point in the past, and the father is a hunter, and it's his job to go into the woods next to the village and hunt for wolves. The daughter meets a girl in the woods who is a wolf walker, which means she is a girl in the day, and then when she goes to sleep, she turns into a wolf.
I know many.
Now, I don't really want to... In terms of the story, I think that's all you need to know, because it's genuinely one of these films that I think benefited massively from the fact that I didn't really know anything about it. I went in not... The only reason I sort of stuck it on was because I'd seen it pop up in a couple of people's end of year list going, oh, this is something that came out this year that was really good. So I watched it, and it is exceptional. It is really, really beautiful. I'm not a animated film fan, particularly. I struggle with a lot of animated films, and this blew me away. And that's why I've got to choose it as my one, because in most years I probably would have not bothered to watch it at all. You know, and I know this is bad because there is a lot of good animated films, but that does tend to put...
There's one that you...
That tends to put me off films.
We don't have time for that. Stop this attack now.
But yeah, I just think it's exceptional storytelling. There's some really good performances in it as well.
Insane. I've only seen a couple of screenshots of this, but it looked kind of Ghibli-esque in terms of the animation.
It's not too far away. So it's Cartoon Saloon, this Irish company. So they did Song of the Sea a few years ago, which is just beautiful. But they've got a pedigree of making very accomplished sort of. Very homemade feel. You know, it feels it not in the sense that it feels amateurish, but in the sense that it feels sort of made with a degree of tactileness. It feels like it's a proper animated film in the old style. And it does, it does have that sort of magical quality, the magical realism aspect of it, where it blends real life and folklore, and it does it really well, and I actually was quite impressed with it. But then again, Cartoon Saloon, they do very good things. So I couldn't say that it's a biggest surprise or whatever for me, because I would expect them to make films of that quality at least.
Maybe it'll give me reason to actually use my Apple TV.
It's worth catching up on, definitely.
I think it's one that, because it's something that most... Obviously, when you tend to get like Oscar nominations for Best Animated Film, it'll be the Pixar films, it'll be stuff like Into the Spider-Verse. What was really very nice was seeing how beautiful this animation is without it being anywhere near traditional in terms of what you'd expect. And there is some really, I think, breathtaking visuals in it at various points. But yeah, so that's mine.
Did you do yours or not?
Yeah. Sonic.
Sorry, yes.
I was just thinking, I rewatched Spider-Verse a couple of days ago. Can that be in my best moment and best film?
No. Afraid not.
It's still so good, guys.
Okay, so...
I've got only one honourable mention, which is Happiest Season. Watch it. It's great.
I had two honourable mentions. One was Happiest Season. The other one, Invisible Man.
Oh yeah,
great.
I think
that was in my top 5 for most of this year.
what Blumhouse managed to do with that, and well, I think credit goes to Lee Winnell first and foremost, because I think he found a way of writing that story that didn't just feel like a rehashing. It felt like its own original story with a real purpose to it. Elizabeth Moss's performance is just mind-blowingly good. And I think it's directed perfectly. It feels like it's just really tightly put together. And it just gets the job done in a way that you didn't expect it to.
That film played my anxieties like a banjo.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say
great.
I also think it's one where it's one of the I think you tend to get in those horror films quite often. You'll get a good central performance, but you get a lot of crap around the tertiary ones. But it's a film where even the tertiary performance is really good. There's her ex-boyfriend's brother in the film.
yes.
Is excellent throughout it. He's sort of, I'd say, probably got the second most screen time, and he's excellent throughout it. But yeah, no, I'm saying that's a very good shout.
Have you got any other honourable
Yeah,
mentions?
I've got an honourable mention to.
Did you have Happiest Season as well? Because, guys, it's just a great film.
It is a great film.
It's a great time film.
Again, I can't pick that one because it was hyped up already.
True.
I was told.
Sorry.
I was told it was the best Christmas film he'd seen all century. So,
Other than Santa Claus 3 and Christmas with the Cranks. Okay.
Krampus, but you know,
Krampus is fun.
So, it's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It's a film that came out on Netflix, and I know that both of you didn't really enjoy it.
It's fine.
I expected to hate it.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be terrible, and it got into my top 10 of the year. I absolutely love that film. I think it's got two phenomenal central performances in it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I love films that feel, you know, it's a play that is adapted into a film, and the setting of that stays the same. You know, it is one location essentially, a couple of different rooms. I tend to love films like that. I like close quarters, contained things. I like the sort of... I do enjoy opinions on here, but it's one that I thought it was just going to get hyped up because of Chadwick Boseman's death earlier this year, and that's why Netflix had pushed it back to be December, so it could be one of their Oscar pushes and all of this stuff. But and as I say, I genuinely expected to not enjoy it,
But it's actually...
and I really, really did enjoy it. So that's the one I've got to mention.
I actually do have one more that I want to just mention, and you'll know why. Dick Johnson is Dead.
Oh, yeah.
It's on Netflix now, and there's no reason why you shouldn't then just go and watch it. But I think in terms of a documentary that's dealing with something that can be dealt with in a very sort of maudlin, down way, I think it approaches the subject of dementia and Alzheimer's with a degree of levity that you don't expect it to, and yet really works because it's blended really well with the sort of actual real life side of things.
There's a scene in that as well that's beautiful, which is Halloween.
Yes.
Like, absolutely incredible. Like, so good.
I was in tears throughout all that. So yeah, I'd say, just this is the category where there's no winner. It's just a case of we highlight the things that we really were surprised by, and I think any of these are. And I think we all agree Sonic the Hedgehog guys is the one that we. I'm glad that that's. Nobody knew that I would enjoy Sonic as much as I did. Right, so
guys, it's time to award the Nerve Award for Stupidest Film of the Year.
And thank God they're still sponsoring this.
This year, it goes to an Amazon Prime original, working with Blumhouse. Well done, The Lie. You win the Nerve Award for Stupidest Film of the Year for being a film that could literally be solved with just one conversation.
Yeah. It's like the dumbest film with the dumbest plot twist. And the thing is, it's a film that contains the best character of the year in Weird Policeman, but also all of the worst bits of everything of the year.
But then again, wasn't Winnie the Pooh in that film with Hugh McGregor the best character possibly in fictional history, and it was also one of your worst films of the year?
No, the film was fine. It wasn't Christopher Robin, I think it was, wasn't it? It was fine. It wasn't bad. It was just but yeah, Winnie the Pooh's hilarious, and go watch it. He's the greatest comedy character of the last 20 years.
Well, obviously, apart from
until this year, obviously.
But yeah, the whole film is packed that
this film could have stopped at any point if the daughter had just said, "By the way." ... Like, I don't want to spoil it in case you guys go and watch it. Yeah, actually, because it is better the less you know going in. But that isn't to say it's good.
But literally from the beginning, this film is stupid.
Yes.
And it continues being stupid all the way
It's stupid
through.
for an hour and a half, and then at the end, it's really stupid for 30 seconds, and then you end the film and you go,
Well,
okay, this is where
That's
we've
a
gone. Yeah, don't watch it. But it is bad.
you do.
It is stupid, and it is bad, and it is truly the Nerve Award for stupidest film
Yeah,
of the year.
I don't think anything has been.
Okay, so now we get into the big ones. The ones that nobody wants to win, and the ones that everybody wants to win. Worst film, first film, and then best film, last film. Worst film is next. Okay. Okay, everyone knew what I was saying. Does anyone want to volunteer to go first?
Well, Fat Turtle's just come onto the stage. With
Sorry,
the
yes,
award.
it's the Entourage Award for the Entourage Forever Award for Worst Film of the Year, which also I think is Batman Forever. So, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
So my worst film is Fantasy Island because it's a terrible film.
Blumhouse's Fantasy Island.
Blumhouse knocking it out of the park.
A lot of
What's
mentions
he doing?
here. Most surprising.
Okay, yeah,
Worst film.
Yeah, they got Invisible Man out this year. They then got out The Lion.
And The Hunt.
Yep, The Hunt was that.
The Hunt.
Blumhouse have been awful this year,
And we
they
still
got
not watched.
Invisible Man.
We still not watched 2 of the Amazon ones,
Like, so
which are
Fantasy-
apparently the better ones.
Fantasy Island is basically the film remake of the TV series.
From the 1970s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's basically you go to an island and you get to live out your fantasies, but your fantasy's just a little bit wrong.
A little bit monkey paw.
Everything's a little bit monkey paw. And so this is a film version of that, and it's obviously got a little bit of a budget, but also not enough budget to think they were confident about it.
Hey, the exteriors were filmed in Fiji, I found out. The interiors, Louisiana.
We could say
different.
Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, you saw Professor E. Gadd as one of the assistants.
Yeah, and basically the film. This is another film that is just stupid the entire way through.
Also, contains loads of fan service.
Yeah, for a series that nobody watched. I'm sure somebody watched Fantasy Island.
They're all dead by now. Anyone who watched that and loved it, I think.
But yeah, even to the end when they're just because I don't know what his name is in Fantasy Island, but I know from Nick Nack from fucking James
Tattoo.
Bond.
Velichez, yeah.
Yeah, when they're just like, oh no, look, this is how he comes into it now.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a tattoo origin story,
Like,
and he's
this is
grown
stupid.
3 feet.
and I was like, this is stupid. But it's a film with a twist that made me actually go, oh god, why am I still watching this?
Yeah, I mean, we caught up with this recently, and it is dumb as hell, and it is bad, and it is really boring.
Oh,
It's astoundingly
horribly boring.
boring for a film where a lot of supposedly exciting, thrilling things happen, but none of them are exciting or thrilling, and all of them are terrible.
There's a bit where if I remember rightly, there's a bit where armed forces break into a mansion or something, and I'm just
Yes.
like, this is terrible.
Yes.
There's some really interesting creative choices going on in that film. I have to say, it didn't quite make my worst, but it's pretty damn bad.
I came out of it and I was just drained because I just thought, how is this a film?
Yeah.
I don't understand who it's for.
Yeah, it's not for anyone.
Who enjoys that?
I think, is it possible that it's the only person it's for is Lucy Hale's agent?
Mate, she is knocking it out of the park and being able to get into things.
Yeah.
You know, getting into Blumhouse films that we hate. She had Truth or Dare, and then this.
But she keeps doing it, and she also had a spin-off from Riverdale.
Yeah, we bought it for the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We own a copy of Truth or Dare.
Yeah.
But that's because we're excited for the sequel, Paul. As we're all excited for Fantasy Island 2. They set it up.
I'm excited for Blumhouse's Duck Duck Goose.
Also, while Lucy Hale's agent should be commended, what is Michael Pena's agent doing?
Yeah, but Michael
why is
Pena
he-
with chips proved that
listen.
he will literally do whatever
I
is
don't
thrown at
understand
him.
how he can do something that's so great. And then
Yeah.
although a lot of actors do this, because I saw a Gary Oldman straight to DVD thing the other day.
Yeah.
It's just the action seems to be it's Gary Oldman. He's got a goatee, and that's all you need to know.
Oh my god, is it The Courier?
It is The Courier.
Oh my god.
I didn't watch it.
I
saw it.
avoided. I saw it pop up on Netflix.
It was like
yeah.
a courier has a bomb in her bag.
It looks very
Maybe
bad.
we should watch The
Gary
Courier,
Oldman
guys.
just loves
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fantasy Island.
What are you running from, Gary?
I don't understand like who it's for.
Yeah.
Everything is stupid.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
No, it is bad.
It's also a film that has a threadbare plot that then also falls apart after the twist because there is then so many things in it where you go, well, that doesn't work, and that doesn't work then. And it is one where it just gets... It's one that you're
It's
right.
like
The twist makes you go,
they've baked a,
why the bloody hell did I spend an hour and a half watching this?
it's like they've baked a souffle. But it's not a souffle because as soon as you touch it, it just goes...
Well, yeah, but remember also, the enemy is water. Kind of. The villain of the piece is the magical water. Do you not remember this?
Yeah.
Rewatch it.
So,
I dare you. I truth or dare you. Netflix is... I mean, Blumhouse is truth or dare you.
I've not seen this film since like February, and I decided I'm never going back to it.
It's really bad, and the villain is water.
Like, I messaged you the other day being like, tell me what the twist is, because I know it's something stupid.
Yeah, there's two villains. One of them is a woman, and one of them is water. Paul, do you want me to go next, or do you want to go next?
No, I can go next.
Okay.
Wait, can I? Sorry.
I'll go.
You go, because...
All right, so Netflix obviously been throwing a lot of stuff our way. Some good, some bad. Some, most surprising, Ma Rainey's. Some, not good. And that's Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. A.k.a. the unwritten Game of Thrones book, I think. It sounds like a Game of Thrones title.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Rise and Fire.
So, this is a film that doesn't really need to exist, and yet it does. And if we're talking about films that, who are they for? This is a film where I'm like, who is it for? And then I'm thinking, well, okay, it's actually a paid advert for Eurovision, and yet it made me hate Eurovision more than I already did. So, on a fundamental level of, this is meant to encourage me to feel fondly towards Eurovision, it's had the opposite effect, and they've spent $150 million on it or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's the story of an Icelandic singing duo who want to win the Eurovision Song Contest, and they form a friendship along the way that will carry them forever. They're already friends, but they overcome obstacles and they overcome Russians, and there is a rip-off of Pitch Perfect in there for some reason at one point. So this movie is really dumb on a lot of levels.
Hello.
Sorry, we just had a poster that... Oh my god, it's Netflix.
Stop talking, we'll watch
It's a Blu-ray copy of Eurovision Song Contest?
It's a Netflix thing, and it says, we are still watching.
It's very good. So, it's a film where I'm just going, oh, okay, so I kind of expect this of Will Ferrell in recent years.
Yeah.
Certainly he had one of your choices for worst film a couple of years ago.
Last year.
In Holmes and Watson. I think it was the year before, actually.
Was it? Oh, yeah, Cats was last year.
Yes, true. And then, you know, this comes along and you go, okay, so you've written this as a passion project because of how much you love the Eurovision Song Contest, but also it's part funded by the Broadcasting Union of the European Union, who are the ones who also put this thing on.
But also, do they like the Eurovision Song Contest?
And it's a film that sort of highlights the naffness of the Eurovision Song Contest, but then tries to celebrate the naffness of Eurovision Song Contest, whilst at the same time making you just painfully aware that the Eurovision Song Contest is one thing and one thing alone, and that's naff. And that's what this film is. You know, it's not that there's anything where, the camera works really bad or whatever. It's just that as a film, it's awful because I can't understand, A, who this is for, B, why they thought this was the advert they needed to make for this thing, and C, why they thought, well, what we'll do is we'll put it in every home who has Netflix. Release this in the cinema and see if anyone goes to watch it. That's what you need to do. But I have a feeling I know why it ended up at Netflix. Maybe no other studio wants to buy it.
I think it was always being made for Netflix, wasn't it?
I don't think it was. I think it was one where he had the idea and he shopped it around, and they were the only people who said yes. I can't imagine another company thinking, "Oh, it's good business sense, this," even if it is half funded by the European Union. Get it out of here. The strongest case for Brexit I've ever seen.
Brexit from the European Union.
Yeah, if it means that we don't have to play in the Eurovision Song Contest anymore.
I think that was part of the deal, is we still get to be part.
They just passed the deal, right? There was a trade deal where it said no Eurovision.
It's like, take what you want, we just don't want to be part of
Does
it
it also get
anymore.
removed from our Netflix queue?
I'm pretty sure Russia's not in the European Union.
Also true.
So
Australia.
We're probably still going to
Australia aren't even in Europe.
Yeah, or
They
Israel.
do Eurovision?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is Israel technically Europe?
Probably not. Anyway,
It is when it comes to UEFA, I know that much. Anyway, Paul, go ahead.
I would just like to point out that the Eurovision is a film that made me question if Alex loves me as a brother. Because...
Well, the rule was we all had to watch our choices for best and worst.
Yes.
So we tried this year to watch, because obviously previous years we haven't.
Yeah.
So we thought this year, we'll make an effort to try and watch one.
Which meant that I had to watch Fantasy Island last week, and I had to watch Eurovision last week. And I think I watched Fantasy Island first, and I thought, fuck you, Andy. And then I watched Eurovision, and oh my god, that is a very, very bad film. And it makes me question whether I like certain people that are involved with it anymore, even after doing so many good things.
About you, Alex.
No, I'm talking about Rachel McAdams and the other one, Dan Stevens. Love those two people as actors normally, but it rips off Pitch Perfect, but does it worse. Oh my! Anyway, right.
If I had a worst moment of the year, we decided we weren't allowed
The
to.
song along.
The song along is worse.
Yeah.
Unofficially, guys, if there was a worst moment of the year, the song along from Eurovision is that moment.
We can't keep adding categories. We have to stop adding categories to this.
But my worst of the year also comes from Netflix.
I told you guys, the streamers have killed us this year.
The worst film of the year was Project Power. Project Power is a terrible, terrible, terrible superhero film that, more than just being a terrible superhero film, then adds extra things in that it then does terribly that it doesn't need in there. Yes, I am talking about the not one, but the two scenes of the girl rapping.
I had forgot about
But
this
one of
too.
them's only a dream rap, so it's not technically a thing that happens.
And I'd completely forgot
I
about
mean,
this
you still have to
until I
watch
was
it.
You
reminded.
do still have to watch it, and it's still terrible.
Like, genuinely.
Yo, teacher, stop teaching us this. I'm my own person.
So Alex reminded me about this the other day, and I genuinely moved it 2 places down in my list of the year because I forgot all about it.
It's honestly it's something that is already a very bad film, and the reason it is my worst is because of those. Because I think it honestly, and to get a little bit serious here, I think it's a little bit problematic that they go, okay, let's have the black kid in it, make their character trait wants to be a rapper. And it's that thing where it's like, that film does not need that, because the film works concept-wise. I loved the concept. It's also it was also a blacklist script, so it's one that I know has been a sort of independent, a small-time screenwriter came up with this sort of concept, wrote it, and it didn't get made for years, and eventually it got picked up, rewritten, and all of this stuff. I would be interested to see how much is in the original script, because I think that it's, as I say, the concept works so well, and I was also tempted to put it in with most disappointing because of that idea, but it's just so bad that I've got to do it as worst. No one comes out of that film looking good, and I mean, I guess Jamie Foxx has redeemed himself at the end of the year, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt is going to have a hard time with that in 7,500 this year. So
the problem with Project Power is it's just stupid as well.
Yeah,
like.
Yeah. And it's just stuff like it goes, oh yes, well, let's help launch the acting career of Casey Neistat. Why are you doing that?
There's one scene I think I liked in Project Power, which is the scene of the woman who basically freezes to death.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a nice scene, and it's shot well from inside the kind of container.
Yeah, because you see the fight going on around from her perspective.
And I thought, that's nice. But also, there's a lot of stupid that comes
Yeah,
along
because
with
then
that.
the scene just before and the scene just after that both involve Casey Neistat. So again, it's very difficult to enjoy. But no, you're right, and this is it. There's a couple of moments in it where I go, "That's a good moment," and this is why, concept-wise, I think it works because there's some stuff in it where you go, "Oh, that." You give that to a better filmmaker, and maybe it comes out all right. It's the sort of thing where you go, okay, if you got someone who's genuinely passionate about weird superhero films.
The worst part about Project Power for me is that me and ex-host of the podcast, Mark Barrett, wrote this film about 4 or 5 years ago. But we wrote it as a series, and we've written like 5 series, and somebody has gone into our brains and stolen it and basically changed it ever so slightly so we can't do it for copyright, and they put it into a film. And that's the worst part of Project Power. We created that.
The worst part is Bertie Bott's Every Flavoured Beans origin story.
And also, I'm still not really sure what some of the powers are supposed to be.
Some of them are just things that happen and you go, I don't know what you do, but I know that you're different. You are strong now? A lot of people just seem to be, they're strong.
Yeah.
And some of them are just, they're on fire.
Some of them is a burnt up Machine Gun Kelly. Don't forget, he's in the film.
Weirdly, not Machine Gun Kelly that has that power.
Is it not?
No, it is. That would have been funnier, though, if it was just Jamie Foxx's power to turn into a burnt-up Machine Gun Kelly.
So I just looked it up because I remember that we'd found something strange about the writer of the film.
Yeah.
And it's so Mattson Tomlin, who is the only credited writer on the film. So whether it went through rewrites during shooting that no one got credited for, which seems suspicious.
Brave.
Well, illegal. If it's a certain percentage of the thing. So we've got to believe that it's mostly Mattson Tomlin's thing.
What you don't want to be credited?
Yeah.
Like, can you take your name off something?
Maybe Mattson Tomlin isn't the original screenwriter. Who knows? Maybe he's the one who did the rewrites. Co-writer of the forthcoming Batman movie. So
Yes,
that was what it was. We did have this discussion on the podcast, I'm sure, and we both cried out laughing. Okay, so we've got 3 contenders.
So yeah, interesting thing about Eurovision, right? So
Oh, please tell me the one interesting thing about
you
Eurovision.
say, who's it for? I know people who loved this film.
You know idiots.
Like, I know people who literally, like, I saw people posting, like, the Dan Stevens song and being like, oh, this song's great, or posting, like, Ya Ya Ding Dong.
Yeah, but you were posting about Ya Ya Ding Dong. You loved it. You actually sang
Ya
it. The Lion of Love is a better song.
Love for you like a drug.
But
Ya Ya
let's...
Ding Dong.
Okay, because I was watching... So I had to watch this film 1.5 times, but I gave up an hour into the rewatch with Paul because I just thought, I can't do this.
I would like to point out that my dedication to the podcast, that I am only on a couple of times a year, went extended so far that, when the credits roll, and as the credits are rolling, there is a full version of Ya Ya Ding Dong.
Yeah.
I still watched it until it finished, because I was told that I needed to watch the film, and so I even carried on for that part.
I can see how this film would appeal to certain people.
Yeah.
I don't really know why, but I know that it would. And I think that's the biggest problem with humanity this year, is that we've discovered a lot of idiots exist, anti-maskers, and pro-Eurovisioners. Not always the same group, but often there's a crossover.
There's also a third crossover of pro-zombie Thatcher, which we have been against the entire year.
I can't believe that there's some people who are actually for her and think that that's a better version.
Zombie Thatcher. We need to be clear, we're talking about zombie Thatcher.
Yeah, we are aware that actual Margaret Thatcher wasn't the worst case scenario of Margaret Thatcher. And we will maintain that this is the only podcast that has got a anti-zombie Thatcher agenda. We do have an agenda. We're very upfront and honest about it, and it's a very specific agenda, and it's one that we will maintain until that uprising is over.
But yeah, so Eurovision.
So Eurovision, yes, stupid and not ready for anyone. Blumhouse's Fantasy Island, stupid and not ready for anyone either. Not for everyone, not for anyone. That also stands. And Project Power, I don't know, because I feel like Project Power is a film where, I don't know, look.
Enough people enjoyed it that I'm willing to admit that I don't think this will be
if I had
the collective worst film of the year.
If I had a choice to watch any of the 3 again, I would watch Project Power.
Yes, I agree. Mainly for Casey Neistat.
I also agree, but that's because I saw Project Power 6 months ago, and I saw the other two in the last week, and I'm not subjecting myself to those films again.
And I had to watch Eurovision 1.5 times. I didn't have to watch it the second time, but I tried my best to help Paul get through the process, and guess what? It didn't work very well. I hated it, and I went to sleep.
Fantasy Island, I did have somebody turn around to me once and go, "Oh, I watched a really interesting film last night, and I quite liked it." I went, "What's that film?" And they went, "Fantasy Island." I haven't spoken to that person since that day.
They're going to listen to the podcast and go, "That's why he's not been speaking to me."
Stop talking.
So, you know what I think? And I think it's between us two, because I think, Paul, you've admitted, Project Power is definitely a film that would appeal to a certain...
I know that there's people that did enjoy it. I think there's so much about it that's bad that I've got to say it's my worst, because... And it comes... Really, I think if you take the 2 rap scenes out, it probably doesn't get to be my worst, but that's what takes it.
I think it's around a Spencer Confidential, which is also a bad film, by the way, guys.
Okay, so here's where I stand, Andy.
Yes.
I am willing to cede to you on this on the basis of one thing. We've literally mentioned Invisible Man in the previous category of most surprising. This is Blumhouse at its worst.
Maybe Fantasy Island.
This is the Mr. Hyde to Blumhouse's Invisible Man, Dr. Jekyll.
Fantasy Island is the culmination of bad Blumhouse from this year, which I think there has been multiple of.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to actually chime in inside on Eurovision here, because I watched them both in the last week, and there was only one of them that was actually painful to watch, and that was Eurovision. Fantasy Island was bad. Eurovision was I rooted for a character in Eurovision, the one that was trying to stop them from entering Eurovision, because I wanted the film to end that much earlier.
But you knew that it's like 2.5 hours.
I know, it's a lot. This is
very
right.
long.
It's
2 hours and 3 minutes.
Well.
Actually, like, Eurovision is my second worst film of the year, by the way. It's like, it's
Fantasy Island's my second worst film of the year as well.
And genuinely, Fantasy Island is dull and it's stupid, but I don't think it's long.
No, it's an hour and 40 maybe.
Yeah, like, which is still too long.
Oh, it's too long for not a good film. Too long for this shouldn't exist.
Eurovision, let's just double check.
It's 2 hours and 3 minutes.
Yeah, because we checked when we watched it.
Because I went to bed when it was an hour and I saw that there was still more than half of the film left.
And how long does it feel?
Oh, interminable.
4, 5...
If you thought lockdown felt like it lasted forever, like, 2020, the year that never ends, when it gets to the 31st, it's just going to reset. Imagine that, but it's a film and you've got Eurovision. It's fucking trash.
I'll go Eurovision. I'll get mine.
All right, fine. I'll do the odd switcheroo. Yeah, fine.
Honestly, as much as I'd like you to go, bad Blumhouse is baddest, but it's Eurovision is painful.
Don't forget that Blumhouse is sometimes bad.
Yeah.
But also,
the thing is, like, next year we've got Halloween Kills, and I've really enjoyed Halloween. You really enjoyed the Halloween reboot they did. And you're someone who doesn't necessarily enjoy that kind of thing, and yet it really did something really well.
They released Invisible Man, which somehow stayed in my top 5 from like when I saw it in like February or March, or whatever, until literally like a week ago.
But we shouldn't forget that the power of Blumhouse is that they can release that and a Fantasy Island or a Truth or Dare in the same year, and it not be good. Okay, so best film.
Yes.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
I need to go after you, because in case you pick what I'm
That's
going
fine.
to.
I'll go first then.
Okay.
Umming and ahhing about this one for ages. There's loads of films that have come out this year that are really good, and we'll talk about a few of them in a bit. By the way, honourable mentions for worst film was just Fantasy Island for me.
Oh, yeah,
and I guess Operation Christmas Drop, but
Operation Christmas Drop is my third worst film.
And I've not seen as much as you guys, but I've Extractions on my honourable mentions for worst. I thought it was the worst big budget action film I've ever seen.
I don't agree, because Old Guard also came out this year. But we'll speak about it another time, but I kind of like Extraction in a way. I've got a soft spot for some of the moments in it.
Okay, so worst over. Best commences. Yes, so lots of things that were sort of duking it out, and even till 5 minutes before this podcast started, I was flicking things around.
Stamp.
So, I've decided on Parasite.
Okay.
On the basis of The film that runs it closest is a film that not everyone's seen anyway. But
Same.
yes.
Yeah.
But the thing about Parasite is every so often you get a film that feels like it's capturing some kind of moment. And it felt like, I remember in the sort of run up to the Oscars, and we were talking about it and we were going, wouldn't it be great if?
Yeah.
And we didn't have a single bone in our body that thought it will do this, that it will win all these Oscars.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it comes away making history as the first foreign language film to win Best Picture Oscar, and it walks away with 4 different awards, and you go, oh, okay, this is recognised, and this is the case of the Academy has recognised, here is this film that is the Best Picture in terms of that. I really love Parasite, and I think what it does so masterfully well, and I think it is, one of the best films of recent times. I think there's a couple of films this year that have that honour, but it is one of the best films of the last few years for me, on the basis of it does everything. And it does everything really, really well.
Yeah.
From the production design, to the performances, to the writing, to the direction, to the cinematography, to the music, everything comes together in this sort of perfect... it feels like it's a stew of all these component parts are thrown in there, and individually they are all brilliant. And when you put them together, you end up with something that is just one of those cinematic experiences that you can't really summarize in words. You can just go, wow, that's a film.
More than some of its parts, basically.
Well, yeah, but even if you take away the sum of its part, if you take away the parts individually, they're all really good.
What I really like about Parasite is the fact that it can't really even be defined into one category.
Yeah, you can't say, it's this genre.
It's one of the funniest films I've seen this year. At times it has horror elements to it. At times it's pure drama. At times it's, all these different things all put into one. I'm like, it's amazing that a film can do so much all at the same time and do it all so well.
Now, one of the things I recall about it is that because I saw it on a preview screening, so I remember distinctly I saw it before either of you two, because you saw it when it actually released. And one of the things that absolutely blew me away about that was when I watched it in the and I think it's a film that also benefits massively from that cinema experience of focusing only on that for your 2-hour runtime, whatever it is. In fact, I'm not sure how long it is because it doesn't feel long. It could have been 90 minutes, actually. Yeah. I don't know. But it's one that it goes from, it starts off in like a drama or a drama comedy, and then it goes into thriller, and then it gets horror elements, and it's all, as you say, it's this melding pot of all these different styles coming into it. But beyond that stuff, every performance is fantastic in it. But then on top of that, you've got stuff like the house they built for it.
Yeah.
Is exceptional. It is possibly, it was my shout for Best Production Design at Oscars because it was absolutely incredible what they did. I think the levels of the house work so well and add some metaphors about what the story they're telling. And you've got so much of these extra things that come into it. And to be honest, I think it all comes down... I could have picked Best Moment here as well because there is a moment in it where... so you've got a great scene where all the family are trying to return to their house in the sort of slums part of the city, and it's in the middle of a massive rainstorm.
Yes. And
they get back and their apartment's flooded and most of their belongings are destroyed. And then the sort of the next scene is you've got the mum of the rich family talking about how the rain last night was such a blessing because the grass is watered. And it's that film that does exactly what it needed to do. It's very relevant here and now, especially with everything over the last couple of years. I think there has been a bit of a highlight of class divide in the last couple of years across Western countries, especially. But obviously, if it's happening in Western countries, it's happening over in Eastern countries as well. And so, it's good that it's a film that comes from somewhere else in the world, but speaks so universally. Or globally.
100%. I think, that what you're saying there links back to what you said at the beginning, which was like, finding a best moment and maybe defining best moment in Parasite is hard because it's a film that is just full of those moments.
It feels like
when
it's
you,
a complete...
when you start saying, "Oh, my best moment," I didn't even expect you to say that one. I thought you were going to say something else.
Yeah, exactly. And this is it. And there's so many of those. Like, there are so many things. If we wanted to, I think we could all pick best moments from Parasite and probably have 3 different ones each. You know, it's one of those sorts of films.
It has one of my favourite performances of the year in it as well.
And there's some imagery in it.
Park So Dam.
Yeah.
I think, and Song Kang-ho, I think, is phenomenal as well as the father of the poor family. I think. But this is the thing, is that I think there's so much that has already been said about it, and obviously we're speaking about it a year after all the hype anyway, but it is coming up again in people's year-end lists for UK releases, and I think there's a reason for that. It's a film that really stayed with a lot of people, and for me, I think it's one of the films that just hasn't left my mind, and I think it just feels like it is a masterpiece of everything working.
And again, if you haven't seen it already, and you live in the UK, it is on Amazon Prime, both in colour and in black and white versions. And
guys, that's
if you've
the
got that,
reason
give it a
why
watch.
this podcast is so good, because we do it to UK releases, means we can talk about this stuff at the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the fact that we live in the UK and that's when we get the releases, guys.
Andy, do you want to go next?
Yeah. For me, this was really easy. Like, it's basically been the film that, since I've seen it, has sat at the top of my list the entire year, which is 1917. The one that ran it closest was Parasite. And there was at times, especially during the start of the year, I was like, which one is it? But 1917 is just, for me, a masterclass in being able to put together a war film and make it seem personal and engaging. I think a lot of the time, like, when you get a new war film, it's kind of like, oh, what more do we have to do? The ability to just follow 2 characters to begin with, and then kind of drift into kind of just following one. And this kind of idea that it is one shot, we know it's not, we know it has the secret edits, but the fact that it seems that one shot makes you feel like you're experiencing a day in the life of this one person. I think George Mackay is phenomenal in this. I think some of the cinematography is incredible. Like, so I said that my best moment of the year is in 1917, but I didn't pick it because I wanted to have a variation. But my best moment of the year is the On Fire City, I'll call it. Where it kind of, it's after a hard cut and it opens and it's a city in darkness just basked in flame, and it is one of the most stunning kind of bits of set that I have seen in cinema in years.
And then what you could argue, in the 2 or 3 minutes that follow the initial sight of it, there's probably 10 or 15 individual frames where you could go, that is something you could hang up on a wall, isn't
100%.
it? And I definitely think that section is very full of visually stunning stuff.
And I think
especially
this film took me on a journey where, like, I felt every hit, I felt every moment, every failure, every success. And by the end of it, when it gets to the point where I think another absolutely gloriously shot scene of him running across that field, basically as people run across the lines, trying to stop this attack, I was there going, do it, get there, you've got to do this, you can't fail. And I felt this kind of drive in this film of me wanting success that I haven't found in any other film. I think it's so masterfully done that it surprised me how great it was. I was expecting something that maybe would be fine. Like, I was like, 1917, I didn't really know what it was when I went in. And when I came out, I was like, yeah, that's great. And the first thing I did was message like my dad, just being like, Dad, you need to go to cinema and watch this. And I know I've now seen it like 2 or 3 times this year. My dad the other day messaged me being like, oh yeah, I was watching a film. I was like, what are you watching? He's like, oh yeah, I watched 1917. And like, so he's gone out and watched it again. It's just really, really well done.
Well, this is one that I only watched last week. Now, I watched it, I think, directly before Eurovision. And blimey, this was what a juxtaposition those two are from each other. Very good. I don't like war films. And I was saying this to Alex before watching it. I don't like war films. this was excellent. It was really, really stunning. George Mackay, can't believe he didn't get nominated for Best Lead Actor at last year's Oscars, because that is something I want to highlight about. And I think there's a lot of stuff that I could add to this part of the conversation. I don't know how we're doing for time, so I will try not to do too much. But there's so many things that add to that film and make it come together in the way it does. And one of the things that blew me away the most is the conveyance of emotion despite the lack of extreme close-up shots. Mm-hmm. And this is something, because of the way it's filmed in that faux one-shot style, means that they don't get the opportunity to do extreme close-ups as much, because obviously it becomes difficulty with focus pulling and all of this nonsense. And yet you feel everything George Mackay is feeling. You know, I think he's out of the two actors, you know, that it focuses on, he's the outstanding one. I thought the other guy's fine, and good in the role, but George Mackay is outstanding in it.
Absolutely.
And it's also got a littering of famous British actors. We established the pattern is that it's only British actors that haven't appeared in Harry Potter films that turn up in 1917 in the supporting roles. And Mark Strong's got one of my favourite lines of the year. He's got a line where he goes, when you show him that, make sure you've got witnesses. Mm-hmm. Some men just want the fight. Yeah, and it's a really powerful line, the way he delivers it, and there's all of this stuff that adds to it. I
think my favourite character in it is one of my favourite side characters of the year is Andrew Scott. Is that his name? Is just great as just this kind of like jaded kind of.
Well, he's got the best joke in the film, with the bet on what day it is. At the very start, very good.
When I was rewatching it, so I watched it with Paul, and it bumped it up the list for me, because I think it had slipped quite. It loses some of its luster when it's on a smaller screen. Mm-hmm. That's inevitable, particularly for such a movie. And here's the thing that Tenet could have learned, is that the sound in this is big without being overwhelming. And I think there is a brilliant mix there. I think it's really well mixed sound, and it feels like, oh, okay, this is how to do it, and Tenet just doesn't do that. And you've got a prime example of, like, this is some of the best sound mixing I've heard in recent years, because you've got very quiet action mixed with loud action, and it's concurrent, and it's just, you know, it's really well done. But yeah, when I was rewatching it, the sort of gallows humour that's on display, particularly in that first section, before they actually leave the trenches, I think is remarkable. I think it's really well written. Yeah. And I think, you're right. I think Andrew Scott plays it really well. The part where he's, you know, blessing them with his whiskey, that's really funny. And I think there is an element of, you know, you look back at it and you go, oh, okay, this is stuff that I can still appreciate, even though it's on a smaller screen, because it's the smaller action stuff. And I think that really played well for me. So I was glad that I went back and rewatched it, because it did elevate it slightly in terms of my estimations across the year. But I knew that it hit for you in a way that, I mean, it hit for me at the same time, and I really enjoyed it on first viewing. But I knew that it stayed there for you, whereas I'd seen a bunch of stuff that I was like, oh, okay, this and this have all gone above it. But I can appreciate why it's where it is.
Like, while the ones behind it have kind of shifted around. The only one that hasn't moved pretty much all year is Parasite. It's always been second, but everything else kind of like moved one or two. Yeah. That's the one that hasn't ever dropped from that first position.
Paul, your turn.
So to carry on with the best of the year being released in the first 2 months of the year. No, I had three things that I could have said here. One of which Alex has dealt with. Parasite is very, 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 very good. Another one I've talked about previously in The Beautiful Day in the Neighbourhood, but my film of the year is Uncut Gems. Uncut Gem, for people in the UK, it's a Netflix, and it got a small cinema release in terms of independent cinemas only, really. But obviously, I think in the States it's not a Netflix thing. So it is, for people that don't know, it's a film by the Safdie brothers, who previously did Good Time. It stars Adam Sandler, and it's the general story of a character called Howard Ratner, who is a jeweler in New York, who is suffering through various problems that are generally self-inflicted. It is an absolute masterpiece of a film, I think, but it is also a Marmite film because everyone that I've spoken to about it either loves it or hates it, and I have not yet found anyone that went, it was okay. Okay.
You found one.
I'm here.
He's here.
And he says it was okay.
I'm here to literally split the difference.
The sense of anxiety I got while watching this film was absolutely unparalleled. It was a 2-hour panic attack, and that sounds terrible. It really does sound terrible, but it was so. But what I always come back to the thing that art's meant to make you feel something. Yeah. And by God, did I feel something! I felt a lot of things during that 2 hours, and it was mostly stress.
Yeah.
But I think it's an exceptional testament to the Safdie brothers as filmmakers. There's a couple of things that I want to sort of bring into here. That one, Adam Sandler's portrayal of Howard Ratner, or the character itself, as it's written, is a terrible human being. Mm-hmm. He is a unlikable protagonist. Yeah. He is the reason things are going wrong. Innocent people around him, like his family and stuff, are being caught up in it, and you feel like you get those moments in the film where he makes decisions, and you're there going, no, because you knew he was going to do it, because he will. But it's those things where I think it's incredible when you can have an unlikable protagonist that actually works, because I think a lot of it's something that has happened more often on TV, I think, than it has in film. Yeah. I think True Detective is a very good example of it happening on TV.
Walter White and Breaking
Yeah,
Bad.
exactly.
Or the OG, Tony Soprano, of course. The only one defending the Sopranos.
No, but this is it. You've got
fine. The original unlikable protagonist. I Love Lucy.
You've got Dominic West in The Wire.
Yeah.
His character is an asshole, but he is the protagonist. And
Homer Simpson, bad dad.
Awful dad.
But
Fred Flintstone. Worst dad.
But to do it in film, I think, is something that's slightly rarer, and rarer still to get it so right.
Yeah.
Because, because 2 hours in the company of an unlikable protagonist should be not pleasant. Mm-hmm. And arguably this wasn't pleasant with the anxiety it did cause, but I think it's masterful. I think it's got so many great supporting performances in it, especially from people that aren't necessarily actors. Mm-hmm. A lot of the cast of this film were street castings, or there's Kevin Garnett plays a fictionalized version of himself. He's a former basketball player, and he is probably the most convincing fictionalized version of themselves that I've seen in years.
As to Alex, I didn't realise Kevin Garnett was an actual basketballer.
Yeah,
I thought he was an actor.
And he was, and this was a character. Character created for the plot of the film. Yeah,
Lakeith Stanfield.
Is phenomenal, really and in a role that is so different to what he's put in before. He is as much as Howard is the unlikable protagonist. Lakeith Stanfield's Damani is the asshole of the film.
I want to just say, most of the people in this film are unlikable.
Yes, yeah, and this is it.
The beauty of the film is it works despite almost everyone being unlikable.
The likable characters are his family. Yeah, that's basically it. And arguably his assistant.
His kids are a bit annoying, right?
And arguably his assistant / mistress. But yeah, it's one of these films that I just think works so well. It's also got a very small jewelry store set at the heart of the story, and some of the cinematography in those jewelry store scenes are absolutely exceptional. It's incredible what they do with how little space they have. You just get the sense of dread with it all. Oh, just accidentally quoted Super Hands, but that's fine. But no, it is really genuinely one where I have to admit, I as much as A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood was the film I needed this year, Uncut Gems was the film that made me remember just what you can do with cinema. Yeah. The sort of stories you can tell. And I also find the behind-the-scenes stuff fascinating about it. It was not written with the Kevin Garnett storyline in it. that was added in during rewrites while they were sort of working out how they were actually going to make it happen. This is a film they've been wanting to do for years, but the perfect people came together for this, because also, another Oscar snub, Adam Sandler's performance, whether you like him or hate him as a person, because he does do some absolute shite. It's a
well, he's got down in the park this year, hasn't he?
Yeah,
got James and Hubie Halloween.
Exactly. It's a
Hubie
really,
was good.
really phenomenal
Hubie was good.
performance.
Official. Actually, would recommend Hubie. New amended rating.
And again, it's one that just the score of it is insane as well. There's the composer Daniel Lobertine is absolutely remarkable with what he does. He did Good Time as well, and he does music under a different name outside of film. But it's one of these ones that he is a composer that understands the chaotic nature of the Safdie brothers films, and complements that with his score. And it's just something where I just thought it all came together.
What I found
so quotable.
What I found was interesting was, so I wasn't allowed to watch this film until, November?
For good reason. For medical health.
Basically, and it's right, your anxiety will not handle this. So I didn't watch it until November. And I was watching it, I was like, okay, yeah, I get why this is stressful. Like, it's a film that understands that noise can sometimes be used as a device. Like, we watched The Gals recently, and I can't remember what it was, but it had a lot of people talking over each other, and it didn't work. And I can't remember what it was.
Jingle Jangle, something like that.
Maybe, yeah. But basically,
I don't think it was that.
And the reason I mention it is because at the time when whatever it was that we watched, I went, well, Uncut Gems knows how to do this properly, which is people are always, like, nobody shuts up. And that's the problem with the film. Like, nobody ever shuts up. But it's not a problem because it works for the film. The fact that, like, it doesn't, unlike, say, A Beautiful Day, where, it's so nice to have. I would have adored a moment of silence in this film, just to kind of, like, give me a break. But I think that's great. But the last section of that film was horrible. Like, I was so stressed.
Yes.
And I could see where it was going. And I kind of saw where the ending, what happens in the ending. I could see how it was going to end. But the journey to get there, I was so stressed going on that. And it's great that film can do that.
Yeah.
Like, the last time I remember having that kind of, like, reaction to the end of a film was Whiplash.
Yes.
Where Whiplash took me on quite a journey at the end of that film, and this did a similar thing.
Yeah, I think the final sections of those two films are pretty directly comparable in terms of the level of excitement and fear that come together basically 50-50.
Yeah.
And just collide into each other.
And what I like is that the two films end in very different ways. Whiplash ends on a hopeful note in some way.
I don't know. Adam Sandler gets onto a set of drums at the end of Uncut Gems.
Yeah, and J.K. Simmons like nods at him, and you're going, "Oh, he respects him finally."
And J.K. Simmons lifts up this stone and goes, "This is mine now."
This is how I win.
I would also like to shout out Best Supporting Actor of the Year being the Diamond Encrusted Furby, because that's an incredible. I mean, one of the things that I love about this film is that there's a couple of those little details where they're so ridiculous that it adds to the realism of the film, because you see his lifestyle and you see the fact that he's rubbing shoulders with these basketball players, that's the sort of, all rappers and all of this stuff. And then he gets this diamond encrusted Furby out and he goes, yeah, I'm behind it. This was my thing. It's such a bizarre thing that you go, wow, but it really works. But
yeah, I completely agree.
Last act is definitely,
his greatness is in the fact that like you hate this guy, but you want him to kind of succeed. But at the same time, every time he fails, you go, well, that was obviously not going to work.
Yeah, it's that thing that, like, I genuinely believe the reason you want him to succeed in the film is because of the people around him that are being negatively affected by it. I think because it is one of those ones where
it's kind of a juxtaposition to 1917, where I wanted 1917 to end with victory and end with that succeeding, because I was like, you've worked so hard for this, you've done so well. Uncut Gems, and they're like, I want you to win just so something goes right for you, because
Yeah.
so far,
Yeah.
you've absolutely flunked this.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those ones.
What I'll say just briefly on it, seeing as I've only I've had 3 seconds of input there. I think it is, you're right in terms of it being that sort of emotional roller coaster but it's a roller coaster that is just all going down. There's no build up or anticipation of like, oh, here we go, here's the fun bit. It's all just the terror of like, what if this crashes? And it probably will. You just see like hammers laying on the track and you're like, that's going to derail us. That's going to derail us. I saw it in the cinema and it was just one of those things where I just went, okay, so that has just made me not breathe for 2 hours. And I think that's a really impressive thing. And I think all 3 of these films have had moments in them. I mean, certainly that has, Uncut Gems has that aspect of it. But 1917 has those moments within it where you are almost breathless within yourself. And then Parasite has these, again, almost breathless moments of these things that are all happening and you're going, oh, wow, this is really the story as it unfolds. And there are some insane plot twists in there that just work. And in a lesser film wouldn't, but they do in Parasite. So I think all 3 of them have definitely got some of that same DNA of just, on a purely emotional and physical level, they are working.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately, if you're making a film, this is what you should be aiming for. Right, so we should fight it out now. That's it.
So
right, okay. Here, let me go first because I'm gonna take myself out of contention purely because, again, as much as it is my best film of the year, I also appreciate that a lot of people hated it. I've spoken to a lot of people that did really hate it.
I can understand why people would hate it.
And so I will take, from that point of view, it is one of these polarizing films that I needed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because for me, it did everything right.
Yeah.
However, I know that I'm niche.
I get why you love it. I spoke to you about this, Alex, when I watched it. I went, I get why people would adore this film. For me, I was like, okay, I really like elements of it, but it's fine. Like, I see what it's doing, and I can see its parts moving. It's almost like I can see the machine working, and I'm there like, okay, yeah, I get how it works, but I'm not actually experiencing what it's making. Yeah. In a way, and I get that, but like I didn't hate it. I'm not one of those people who say like, "Oh, this is terrible," because I get the point.
But this is it, and there's enough about it that is so subjective in terms of what you like. That whereas I think the other 2 films mentioned here are both categorically like they are well-made film, and to the point where I think it would be difficult to watch either of those films and not get any sort of enjoyment out of them. Whereas I can understand people watching Uncut Gems and not getting any enjoyment. So I am just going to effectively, I did want to talk about it, but I also appreciate
I withdraw, gentlemen.
I also appreciate that it is not the film of the year.
For me, 1917 is the film of the year. Like, I think for me, as the film girl I am, I think it's a great blockbuster film, but at the same time has nuance of like a more well-crafted film. I think it's well put together, but also I love war films. I think, there's some kind of beauty within the kind of chaos. But I'm willing to say Parasite's film of the year because it was my second best. It was
my second
your
best.
second best, and it's your first. Yeah. We've talked about it like 3 or 4 times throughout the episode.
On a purely aggregated level.
How can it not be film of the year when it just keeps coming up?
And I think, so what I'll say as a final thing on 1917 is that, like I said, that rewatch kind of helped me solidify my opinion on it. And like I said, it raised it. And I think the smaller stuff came through for me on that in a way that it maybe only could on second viewing on a smaller screen, because I think if I'd seen it again in the cinema, I might have again been sort of overwhelmed by the whole experience of it, which was obviously a great thing first time round. But we mentioned it in the review of that film way back in whenever it was, January, and said that, George Mackay is a central performance. And I think the central performance in that and in Uncut Gems are comparable in terms of they were both snubbed in terms of, those are two really excellent performances. And we know George Mackay is capable of greatness. We know that. We know that, Adam Sandler has had previously good work done and then did Hubie Halloween and followed it up with just even better stuff, obviously. So,
So what you're saying is
1917
the best film of the year
Is
is
Hubie
the moment in Hubie Halloween that has the cat pull in the face.
I didn't mention it, but it's funny.
Yeah,
So with 1917, it's that thing of I really appreciated the fact that for me, it isn't a war film. It is a story being told, first and foremost. The war is there, and the war is the backdrop for it. But ultimately, it's a really good exercise in storytelling, which I think is important because it sets it out as being something completely different. And I think Sam Mendes, the way he constructed it, that's really sensible because it enables them to go, okay, well, we can tell this story in a really engaging way. And also the war stuff doesn't fall into the trappings of a traditional war film that sometimes fall into cliche. It avoids that by being, first and foremost, this is the story we're telling here. And it is the story of this one guy, and he is, on screen for everything. That's intense. That's an intense performance. But I think you're right. I mean, in terms of it's second in yours, it was second in yours, it's first in mine. It could have been second in mine. It could have been first. It was one of those ones that just was always in that top bracket.
It was never out of the conversation.
And Parasite, I think he's done something really incredible, which is create some kind of buzz around a film that traditionally you'd be looking at this having a really small audience.
Yeah.
And it's the first time in 10 years that the Oscar bounce has ever actually affected a Best Picture winner. Because who's going to go and see a foreign language film? Hopefully, more people now.
Yeah.
Because the success of Parasite... And you know me, I fucking bang on about foreign language. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is in my top 5, top 6. I'm always talking about this shit, and no one's listening to me ever.
There was no Iranian vampire film this year.
No,
though,
that was the biggest.
It's been a long time since that. Let's move on.
I agree though, and I think you
did the Bad Batch since then.
You can see the effect it's had already throughout stuff like on Netflix. Where we were browsing the other day and saw a South Korean zombie series advertised. And, it's this thing, and it was advertised as Netflix original, and it was top of the pet, the big preview bits that they actually put up and go, and actually put a focus on. That didn't happen last year.
Yeah,
I think it's changed the conversation around films like that.
And beyond that is, it's stuff like, and I know that there was enough people watching this already, but there's that Spanish series Money Heist that again,
my parents adore it.
Netflix have now this year put a bigger push on it, and you've got the platform came out on, you can see these films where they are now being pushed to English speaking audiences. And I genuinely believe a big contributing factor is how well that Parasite did do.
I think Bong Joon-Ho's quote on it is just the perfect summarization, though, in that there's a whole world of cinema that is there available to you if you can just get past that 1-inch obstacle of a subtitle. That's all you have to do. Get past that text and look at the stuff you can see. Parasite is just phenomenal. So... Our best moment of the year
is the restaurant's restaurant minute of silence in Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Our most disappointing was Tenet.
Unofficially, though, is 2020 as a general concept.
Yes, I forgot. Our
biggest surprises.
A bunch of things. Go and watch whatever we recommended, especially Happiest Season. It's still in season. Come on, guys, you can still feel festive. Nerve Award for Stupidest Film of the Year is, of course, Blumhouse's The Lie. Don't watch it, but do watch it and think of just one conversation would have stopped this at any point. Worst Film of the Year is Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. I'm a big winner here today. I've got 3 wins. This is insane. And finally, Best Picture of the Year is Parasite. It's our film of the year. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
Thanks for your support and all that.
Just don't tell me about the films. Just tell me the names of any of the films that were...
we didn't even
any of the films that were within the conversation for Best Picture. Just tell me the names of them.
Okay, so names. Saint Maud.
Yeah.
That could have easily been first for me. Uncut Gems was in my top 5, as well as, let me just bring it up, Relic, which is available for rental now and purchase in February, and I think more people should see it. Portrait of Lady on Fire, Never Ready, Sometimes Always. Dick Johnson Is Dead was in my top 7. Like, it's that good for me. Yeah.
Obviously, mine, the second was Parasite. Third would have been Beautiful Day in the Neighbourhood. Rounding that out, I'll just mention Saint Maud. You've already mentioned, but which was very, very good. I will just mention I absolutely loved Netflix's His House. And I think, and I should have mentioned it during Most Surprising because I didn't really know much about it. It's a really, really, and especially from a British point of view, it's got a lot in there that you can associate with the British culture of how we treat refugees and things like this. And the horror in it is exceptional. It's got some amazing imagery in it as well.
I was told to watch it, and
I will just that was the other thing that rounded out my top 5. So
for me, in 1917, Parasite were always top. The only thing that came anywhere close was Soul, which I absolutely adore. I think it's a beautiful film. But we'll talk about that on our next regular episode.
The actual episode. Paul, do you have anything to plug at this time?
No.
Cool. But you've been here, and that's good, and you're here next year.
You can still go on the Violet Hayes Films YouTube channel and see if we've posted anything new, which we will be at some point soon, but I don't know when you're listening to this. So.
That's a technical plug. Technical plug.
Violet Hayes.
They all count.
Our plug is listen to the podcast, guys. You have been already.
Absolutely.
Maybe subscribe to it.
Leave us a review.
Tell friends.
Tell us what your favourite film was. You know. Tell us why we're fucking wrong. No doubt.
What do you think should get the Nerves Award for stupidest film of the year? And we'll tell you why.
If it's anything other than The Lie, then you haven't seen The Lie.
Thank you for joining us as ever, guys. We're on Facebook,
Twitter,
all that kind of places. Dinosaur Man Podcast or at Dinosaur Man 15 on Twitter and Instagram.
Johnny did the theme song.
He did the theme song this year. It was
scored by Daniel Lobertin.
It was awful. It took ages. We were in lockdown 4 times, it feels like.
I think Hans Zimmer did the soundtrack for Wonder Woman 84, by the way.
Yeah.
And it is awful.
Okay, interesting. Well, I'll watch the film and I'll tell you if I think so as well.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, both.
Thank you, me. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you guys for joining us. It's been a year. We got through it.
I will never do it again.
And until next time, guys.
Thank you, Bong Joon-Ho.